What is up, everybody, and welcome back to Spoilers Only. On today's episode, it's all about sitcoms, from our comfort comedies to ones we grew up watching and recent additions to the comedy world. We're chatting about sitcoms new and old, and we have a special guest with us today. Joining us is the lead drummer for Connecticut's own Chousand, a super cool pop punk band that you should really all check out. And he also happens to be one of the coolest cousins ever. Please welcome Mr. Jason Piel.
Thank you, guys.
Who am I, cousin Jason?
Yeah.
Woo!
Great to be here. I'm very excited to talk about all my favorite shows growing up in comedy, old and new.
Yeah, and thank you so much for, you're a very busy guy, so we're really honored that you'd make some time to come on and hang out with us, because this is going to be a lot of fun.
Anytime.
So, when it comes to comedies, do you guys have one that you can just keep on in the background like all day long, or you watch to like fall asleep to? Because I know a lot of people have their shows that they put on and helps them fall asleep at night. I'm one of them. I do that a lot.
I would say the one that I would put on in the background, it just doesn't remain in the background very long because I love it so much and I'll just stop doing whatever I'm doing, but it would be The Office. Like I would just always keep that on and then just watching The Office.
Yeah, that's definitely my nighttime show, because I'll put that on and like fall asleep to it, or I'll just re-binge it. It was actually on this morning while I was having breakfast, and so I watched the episode. It was the dinner party with Jan and Michael.
My favorite episode. My favorite episode.
Yeah, that one is a really
throwing
good
the Dundee at the TV.
Yeah. And he's like, that was a $200 plasma screen TV.
That's a $200 TV that you just killed. Yeah. That I would actually say that I think a better answer for me for actual background would be 30 Rock, because 30 Rock, I feel like every sentence of that show, of every episode, is a one-liner punchline joke. You can kind of walk into it wherever. Like if it was actually background noise, you could tune over and just be like, did Liz Lemon really just say that? And it's like, it's always funny every time. Me and my mom were just watching a bunch of episodes, and I can't remember which ones that we were watching. I just remember I was just so blown away by how every line is a joke. Just the writers on that show are just incredible, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely one that I watched a lot growing up, and even now, because I think it's still on Netflix or it moved to Hulu, so I know it's somewhere on streaming.
Netflix, yeah.
But there's this one episode that I watch every year on leap year where it's leap year William, and he turns children's tears into candy. I think he comes out of the ocean or of the sea like every 4 years.
I don't really remember the episode, but is that a Kenneth thing? I feel like that this is Kenneth's idea. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to wear blue and yellow. So every year I'd wear blue and yellow and watch that.
Dang. Yeah, I don't remember that one. Go ahead.
I was going to say, what about you, Inea? Do you have like the shows that you just have on in the background?
For me, it's definitely New Girl. I've rewatched that show so many times. I have the entire thing memorized. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. You know, you laugh, you cry, real tears.
I love New Girl.
And it just, like, some of the punchlines in some of the episodes is just incredibly absurd, where you would never imagine being put in those situations, but here they are, and you get like immense secondhand embarrassment a lot of the times from them. Like one episode that's been stuck in my head with for the past, I don't know how long, was the episode where Winston was getting ready to go to school to be a cop, and then they had to have like the little in-home interview or whatever, and then the rest of his roommates like started lying a bunch about like what he was doing. They're like, oh yeah, he actually like he has a little brother that he like takes care of from like the Boys and Girls Club or whatever. So Coach has to go out and go find him a kid, and he pulls us to the park and says, hey kid, come here, I need a little boy. And he realizes how he sounds, so he like pulls away immediately.
Oh man,
it's insane.
Yeah, that's a good show. I remember like the whole thing with Nick and him writing the Julius Pepperwood book, and I bought a shirt, like I don't even know what year it was, but I'd wear it to school, and if we had like school testing or something, it was like my favorite shirt, because it used to be like I think 3/4 length sleeves, and I just thought it felt It was so cool. And I have a New Girl board game that I've never played, but I literally just bought it because they were on it, because I
No
wanted to
way.
have it. And
That's
you know what's
Is it
funny
like a
too? It's like a
What's that?
trivia game.
oh.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's like trivia, I think, about the show.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. But I was gonna say, years ago when Jay came down to see us for a visit, I painted a popsicle
I
that
have it. I have it
looked
right back there.
it looked just like the one that was in Jess's room.
Yeah.
And so I gave it to him, and it travels with him everywhere he goes now.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that.
When it comes to New Girl, though, I think one of my favorite episodes is the one where Nick and Jess meet Prince.
Oh my god, yes.
I love that episode.
And they just like sit in his closet or whatever, eating waffles or something.
Yeah.
And Prince the musician?
Yeah.
Oh no way. I didn't watch New Girl all the way through. I watched it in college for I think maybe 3 or 4 seasons. And then I think I was watching it while it was actually on TV, and then I just fell off of it, which is always a sad thing to happen, but I never got to finish it. I should go back and do that though.
You should.
That was a hilarious show.
Yeah.
But yeah, Prince was on an episode because I think it was that Jess's car got hit by somebody else's car, and then it turns out that it was Prince's driver, and then to apologize, he invites him to a party, and then they get into the party, but I think
No way.
Nick, well, I guess technically only Cece and Jess got invited to the party, so the other guys tried to sneak in, and Nick just was not successful. So the episode was just him trying to sneak in.
Yeah, that was a really funny one. But that's a show. I mean, I haven't seen it in like years, but there's so many moments, like you said, that just like kind of stick with you. And I feel like any one of like Schmidt's one-liners
Schmitty.
are just hilarious.
Yeah. That was I think his first role, right? I mean, I remember seeing that actor. What's that actor's name? Do you know?
Max Greenfield.
Max Greenfield. I remember seeing him later in The Big Short, and then he started popping up in a bunch of other movies, and I was like, man, Schmitty made it.
Yeah.
Out here doing it. He's on another show now, right? He's on some new sitcom I saw. He plays, I think, a dad.
Yeah, I think he's on CBS.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I want to say maybe the Neighbors or maybe The Neighborhood. I
think you're right. I think it's The Neighborhood.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of like network TV anymore. Like I'm sure there's exceptions, but I've really gotten used to like either like the HBO Showtime shows or like streaming.
Same.
That's where I watch a lot of TV. But there are like really good network sitcoms, and this is actually a perfect segue into another one that we wanted to talk about. Was Abbott Elementary is like the new hit. It is like insanely popular. It's funny. They're making predictions that it's going to sweep the Emmys, and it's got
100% on Rotten Tomato right now.
Yeah, it's like the biggest freshman sitcom in a long time for its first season, still having a 100. Like that's huge, and especially for ABC, because the style of Abbott Elementary is it's sort of mockumentary, and it follows teachers and principal and some really funny employees at an elementary school in Philadelphia, and it's sort of like Modern Family style to where it like follows them around. And I know Modern Family ended a couple years ago, and I feel like ABC hasn't really had a big hit since then. So I think this is their new one for sure.
Do you think, even given the success of Abbott Elementary, do you think network TV is here to stay, or do you think we're heading in a direction where it's all going to be that buffet style, Netflix, Hulu, HBO?
Definitely the buffet style, because just regular TV in its own is just kind of falling out since everyone is being catered more by streaming platforms and whatnot. But however, I think that it is being combated, the whole buffet style versus weekly release, because I know Hulu and HBO, at least, they definitely do the weekly releases, except with Hulu, they release 3 episodes at first, and then the rest are weekly.
Yeah.
Which I prefer the weekly episodes, because just watching it all in one sitting is good as it is to have to be able to do that, just to know everything right then, I like the thrill of just following the show along and just kind of anticipating the entire week to watch that episode.
I like that too.
Yeah.
And I remember like I was watching Breaking Bad live, and one of my other musician buddies, Bobby Marino, we would. One of the best parts of watching the show was having the whole week to digest it and come up with theories and what was Walt really what did he mean here, and like taking the breath in between episodes, which you could still technically do now, but we also, I mean, I also can't. Like the second, the thing just starts playing the next one, I also really do want to just jump into the next episode. So it's nice to see that. I mean, Netflix and some of these, quote unquote buffet style networks are starting to do that, where they will release, a few episodes, get you hooked on it, and then make you wait and have to, kind of sit and stew and think about the episodes and talk to your friends and create buzz. And it's probably better for them too, because people go out there longer, talking about it longer, and you create a longer season. But yeah, I like that. I just think we'll definitely transition. I think networks will go away eventually. I think it's just going to be, yeah, definitely. And I think it's going to just be because advertisements, I mean, subsidizing, a network's income, like you'd have to pay for cable, and then they have to sell you advertisements. They need to make up revenue that way, when I think people would just much rather pay $9 a month, $10 a month, or whatever, and just watch whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. I think too, like with shows like Abbott Elementary and even The Neighborhood on CBS, like we were just talking about, that has some pretty high ratings, and it's, I think, still on. I think it's 4 or 5 seasons. So I think there's shows that, like, especially NBC Thursday nights is like Law and Order night, which that's one of the television shows I still watch. I don't watch it all the time, but like Law and Order, I feel like everybody knows
You
Law and
guys
Order.
love
So,
Law and Order, though, right? You've always loved Law and Order since you
oh
were
yeah, since
just a wee
6 months
lass.
old.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, 6 months old. I
I
used
know
to get
that
so excited about the
you
the
couldn't
dun
talk
dun.
with the note, yeah, dun dun. And
Yeah.
so,
But like that's like Thursday nights on NBC. Wednesday night is like Chicago night, because they have like Chicago Med, Fire, and PD, and they have
yeah.
like all of these shows. So those are still really popular, and I see those trend on Twitter a lot. And I used to watch them all the time, but sometimes I just fall out with them. I can't stick with them.
Yeah.
But
Well, I don't think that
with
those will go away. I think that the network would need to, at some point, the network, it can't survive with just one good show, and it would need to dissolve itself, and then it would sell, its assets piecemeal. And I think that Law and Order would just get picked up by, HBO or Netflix or, whatever, and they would just
yeah,
archive the whole
and
series. And
NBC has Peacock, which is like a big streaming service now, and they put the episodes on there the next day. So I feel like in a world, I sounded like a
in a
trailer.
world.
In a world where like my TV here is a Fire Stick, and we cut cable like years ago. We have YouTube TV, so we get our network shows, our news, then we have our add-ons and like other cable channels. But most of the time, HBO, I'll be watching. Peacock has a lot of older shows, newer shows. We were talking about how episodes come out weekly, and something about HBO is Barry and Succession,
Mm-hmm.
two of our favorite shows. Because another thing about like Succession is Inea and I will watch the episode together, like we'll message each other, and then we'll talk about, oh, I can't wait for next week because I think this, and this is going to happen. So I think that kind of went away, even though I loved, like, I just remember like certain episodes coming out. But the thing is, HBO Max, one thing I wanted to mention, because this is not a comedy, but The Flight Attendant just came back for season 2, and that's like a really, really good action thriller show. It's got some funny moments, but it is definitely not a comedy like the ones we're talking about today. They release episodes every Thursday, 2 at a time.
Oh, really?
So usually I think like last season there was 8 episodes. I'm pretty sure there's going to be 8 episodes this season. And so far we're on episode 4. That was the newest one that just came out, 3 and 4. So there'll be 2 more weeks of episodes. And then, it'll be over until the next time. And they're both an hour long. So I don't mind that, like having 1 or 2 or even 3 episodes at a time, whether it's an hour or a half an hour show. But I definitely agree with Inea, because we talk about this a lot, about the weekly episode releases, because I think it's
Having
just
that
more
like period to
enjoyable.
digest it and think about it and come up with your own theories, and then even just like having that time to, because you can sort of run a narrative in your head after an episode ends and come up with a direction you think it's going to go, and then it makes the next episode so surprising when you're completely wrong, and then it's even more shocking, as opposed to just where you don't even have a minute to think of where it could possibly be going, and you're just kind of stream of conscious or stream of television just coming into your head, and you just never really get to create your own expectations because you just don't take a breath when you binge watch. But I wanted to ask too, just because you brought up Succession. I know we're talking about old sitcoms and stuff, and you've probably even done an episode on Succession. But what did you guys think of the season finale of season 3?
Ooh, boy.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we've done
Hot
2
topic.
episodes so far, and
Did
they
you?
were each almost 2 hours long.
Oh wow.
So
Were they?
any
Cliff notes.
mention
3
mention
minutes.
of Succession is welcome
Yeah.
on any episode.
Cool. What'd you guys think though? Season finale.
It was intense, to say the least. And I know that word has been thrown around a lot with that episode, but it was intense, jaw-dropping even.
Yeah.
But I feel like not entirely unexpected.
It caught me off guard.
I mean, yeah. But
yeah. I was I don't know. I loved I'm drawing a blank now. What's the main character, the woman's husband? What's his name? He's like the funniest guy. Tom, yeah. I love that he kind of stood up for himself and
yeah, that's why I feel like
betrayed.
it wasn't completely unexpected, because like, I mean, when you're treated like that by like your own wife and her family and whatnot, you gotta lash out at some point. So
For sure. I mean, and that's kind of what I mean too about, I don't know, like just having enough time, I guess, between an episode. Like in my head, Tom, and this is just the brilliance of those writers, they were able to like create a character where you thought he was so spineless and just such a pushover, and his wife walks all over him, that when the time comes and he does, have a snapping point and go betray, his wife and his family, and go out, look out for himself, it just made it that much, surprising to me, because I just didn't think he was going to do that, because it wasn't his character. But I loved it.
Yeah, it was good, because something Inea and I have talked about is the way that he treated Greg in like the first 2 seasons really. And there's been so many moments where he's just kind of rude to him, and it is in a funny way. It is played off funny, but I feel like Greg and Tom have developed a bond, even though they kind of feel like outsiders in the family. And we've had episodes and we've had discussions where Inea has talked about like being a part-time Tom Wamsgans hater, because we in this house, we believe in Greg supremacy.
Yeah.
So we, we're ride or die for cousin Greg. And with Tom though, I've been a fan of Matthew McFadden though, his like shows that he's been in when he was, or he's been in some English shows that I've seen as well, and he's a really good actor. So I've always kind of had a soft spot for him, because I've seen him in so many things too. So I've always been kind of on the fence, because I've seen the way that he can treat Greg sometimes. But I also feel like now that Tom feels comfortable with literally, blowing up what Shiv and them have, and also taking down the other siblings along the way, because we don't know where this is going to go next. I think now that he's gotten to a point where he's kind of comfortable with that and he knows what he's doing, I think he's going to take Greg along and hopefully protect him. Hopefully, he won't kind of throw him under the bus at all or anything.
I'd agree 100%.
I feel like if he throws him under the bus, he'd be throwing himself under the bus, because we remember the recordings that never came up.
Yeah, cousin Greg's got dirt on Tom, so I think also, I just think like from the writer's standpoint too, I mean, that is just, their relationship is one of the most interesting, like weird, bromantic, dominant, like just punishing, almost like torturous. Like, it's just the craziest relationship between two men I've ever seen on a TV show. Like, where you've got this guy in a power or a position of power who's like got his thumb on Greg, and he's abusive to him and borderline, like, inappropriate in almost every possible way, but then at the same time has this deep like love for him. And like, there's just those like scenes where he like, breaks down in front of Greg and cries to him and stuff, and it's just like this just crazy like dichotomy of like, abuse and love, and it's just like very fun to watch at the minute.
That comes from just like a product of your environment kind of thing, because obviously we see like the way that like the rest of the Roys treat Tom, because he is that pushover. So he comes across Greg, who he sees that he could be like a genuine friend, because they're like equally level-headed or whatever, but at the same time he sees that Greg is sensitive, so he now has someone that he can walk all over. So right. He's building up that friendship as well as the bullying or whatever, for like a better word.
And I think hopefully, I think a lot of relationships are going to be tested in the next season, because in season 3, I mean, in the other seasons as well, but if you look at season 3, you saw an emphasis, and especially when the season 3 posters came out, you saw an emphasis on Roman and Jerry's relationship, Shiv and Tom's relationship, Tom and Greg's relationship, Kendall and Logan's relationship, even, Logan and Marsha's relationship. So there's a lot of questions for season 4. And I'm also looking forward to seeing what happens with Roman and Jerry, because I feel like they did get closer in seasons 2 and 3. And right at the end, when Roman gets very emotional when talking with Logan, and Jerry's just sort of like back to being family counsel, and she's just all business. So I think there's going to be a lot to talk about. But you're definitely going to be on the next Succession episode we hear.
Yeah, I know. Now we're making the Succession podcast. One more question about Succession.
It's going to be great.
And then we'll jump back. But what did you think? I had one thing I actually didn't like about season 3, and I hated the regression, I guess, of Kendall. I feel like season 2, Kendall sort of was standing up for himself, like taking Logan to court, or suing him for the company, and he just like he sort of like morphed into this stoic, like, I don't care. I'm just like, I feel like he showed a lot of like progression and kind of getting over that, quote unquote douchiness that he had about him in like season 1, and he sort of like became this more serious person, which I love to see. I mean, I thought it was like a super interesting thing. And then it was almost, season 2 ended with this like very cool cliffhanger of him just like standing up for himself, and it seemed like a phoenix from the ashes, like becoming this thing. And then right away season 3 started, and he was back to like old Kendall, like, and it was like almost hard to watch. He had like almost, we could maybe tie this back into comedy. He had a kind of Michael Scott vibe to him, where he seems like he doesn't really know like social cues, and he's offensive to people when he thinks he's being cool. And I just didn't like seeing him go back to that. I don't know. What do you guys think?
It's been a minute since I've seen it, so like I know what you mean, but I'm having trouble pulling everything out. But maybe that's what happens when you think you killed somebody.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was more like he just kind of had that "my shit don't stink" vibe. He was like, I'm gonna sue and win, and he like, was Definitely. This new like social justice crusader now, and he was, selling the whole standing up for, what was his thing? Was it standing up for women or something? Or
that was an act. That was an act. That was all.
Yeah, I know. It was just I don't know.
Yeah, but he definitely got back like with the family mix. I think in season 3 we saw that a lot, and I think also I think as each episode went on, he was like slowly having a nervous breakdown, and then right at the end, that's when everything kind of came to a head. So I do get what you mean, though. Like, he definitely had a very sort of ego-filled vibe, definitely in the beginning. I was actually just watching like the first few episodes just the other day, and you saw him walk into the meeting with Lawrence from Walter, thinking that he's going to acquire the company and this is going to be great, and he's excited to take over. And then all of a sudden, Logan's like, "Hey, I'm going to stay on for maybe a year, 2 years, 5 years," and it just kind of shot him down almost. And I think after the whole wedding incident happened with the caterer, I think he said, I'm just going to have to obey my father because this can get out.
Yeah.
And that could be like really damaging. And then, right at the end of season 2, it's like he was kind of quiet all season and he was just like taking everything in season 2. And then right at the end, when he switched at the press conference, that was a very jaw-dropping, fun moment. And then, yeah, I think season 3 was just a planned out 9-episode nervous breakdown. So, because he came clean to Shiv and Roman when they were in Italy. So I think there's going to be a lot of unanswered questions next season, and hopefully Kendall can get back some of his kind of cool vibe a little bit.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. You know when that starts?
No, they are finished writing, and they're going to start filming, I think, in June. So maybe because last season, it was delayed because of COVID, but I think, last season came out in October. The year before that, I'm pretty sure it was September. And the year before that, I think the first episode premiered in June or July, and then it came back in, I think, August or September. So maybe September, I think the start of the fall, network season, hopefully. But in the meantime, at least we have Barry to watch.
At least we
on
have
HBO,
Barry.
So.
Which regretfully, I have to say, I'm still 2 seasons behind now. Well, season 3 just started, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't done season 2 yet.
And they're short seasons, so it's.
Yeah, they're 30-minute episodes, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's check it
Yeah.
out. I hear only amazing things about it, though.
It's pretty.
Yeah,
it's really good.
Good.
Where I saw on the list we were going to talk about It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia today. Where, if you could point me in the right direction, where can I even watch that right now? I used to watch it on, I think, Hulu.
Yep.
I got to get back to get me some It's Always Sunny.
Yeah, I binged it again. I haven't gotten all the way through it, but I restarted it months ago, and I think I nonstop got up to like season 7. So I have a little ways to go, but
Nice.
it just came back again for its 15th season. So
That
it's
is insane that show's
one of the
running.
longest running comedies on like network television, or cable television because it's FX. And the season premiere was really funny because I don't know if you guys saw it, but they
Of the newest season?
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I didn't see it.
yeah, they I can't remember like how it exactly starts off. They're at the bar, obviously, they're at the pub, and they have a tax guy coming to ask them about some debts and like some money that they have. Because they took out PPP loans during the pandemic, and so they have to like show what they did, and so they each started like these little businesses, and they all tie together to all of the political craziness that happened last year.
Oh, really?
So Mac and Dennis started a band, and they took out money to like play at polling places, and so they put up these drop boxes, so you'd have to vote who was better, Rocky or McNabb. And so they had like their voting booth next to the voting booth for the presidential election. And so they were like, oh, you guys were to blame for the delay in counting the votes in Pennsylvania. And then Sweet D and Charlie started like a mask making business that they were making face masks and selling them. And they started making all kinds of other stuff. And so they got an order for clothing that was going to a protest, and it ended up being the Capitol riot. And so you show them like they were dropping off this stuff that some of them wore, and it was like, oh my God. And then Frank took out a loan to do a hair dye company because he needed to dye his hair because he hasn't been going to the salon. So he made his own hair dye and started doing people's hair. And you don't really see him, but it was supposedly former mayor Rudy Giuliani. And that was the hair dye that infamously ran down his face at the press conference.
Oh
And so basically, it all tied together that those, the 5 characters were basically responsible for all of the craziness that happened. And as it went along, they kept like kind of doing like innuendos that they maybe voted for Trump, but they wouldn't say like, oh, our candidate didn't win, or, oh, we thought our candidate was being treated unfairly, but they didn't say it. So right at the very end, you find out that they all voted for Kanye West.
Oh my God.
And the little credit montage is like they were being edited into like the 4 Seasons Total Landscaping press conference. And like you see Frank next to Rudy, and like they put them into the pictures at the Capitol and stuff, and they played Kanye West songs as the little credits roll. So that was like that was the season premiere, and it was like really funny because it had been off for a couple years, I know. And it was really funny. And they Mac, Dennis, and Charlie recently started a podcast where they talk about like each episode. They go through, they tell like stories behind the scenes stuff. So that's been a lot of fun to hear too.
Yeah, they're hilarious to listen to. I mean, and it's so funny to hear them just talking casually, but they literally, I mean, their characters on the show are definitely an extreme version of themselves, but they are like those characters in a big way, like a lot of the time, like, at least their sense of humor and stuff. And like Dennis, or Rob is Mac. What's Dennis's name in real life?
Glenn Howerton.
Glenn Howerton, he's clearly not like a psychopath or anything like that, but his sense of humor is dark in that way. And like when he makes a joke, it'll go into that like very kind of dark comedy. And it's just so funny to listen to those guys talk. But you got a favorite? So like when I would watch It's Always Sunny, I feel like, because I would watch that on repeat too. That was another show that I always kept on in the background. And when I lived at college, me and all my roommates, we were always watching It's Always Sunny, and that was sort of our evening ritual after making dinner, put on a few episodes. But I feel like we only ever watched seasons maybe like 1 through 5 or 6. And that was just kind of our repeat. So I know all those episodes really well. Did you said that you kept going to 7, and have you gone further than that?
Yeah, I've seen the whole thing. But I'm with you where like the earlier seasons,
they're so good.
I would think probably 1 through 6, I think is like really just prime television, because it was 2005 when it started. So, there's a lot of things that they say that you really can't say on television anymore, even in just 10 or 15 short years. Things have really changed. And for the better too, because a lot of their humor was just like sort of cringe comedy. So, and I think also in the more recent seasons, they've tried to reform the characters.
Isn't like the first episode or the second episode is called The Gang Gets Racist?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like about their.
So they really like push the boundaries of like television, but I think that's also why it has lasted so long and why it's so iconic, is because a lot of the interviews that I've watched and I've read is like they kind of just show like, we're just showing you people you don't want to be necessarily. Like, just don't talk like them, don't really act like them. They're just terrible, but come along for the ride and see how crazy they actually can get.
Yeah, and it's not like they're ever rewarded for their behavior either. I mean, it always ends with them, losing.
Yeah.
They always lose. Yeah.
They get in trouble. They have just like the craziest things happen to them, and it's also like it's so funny that they can sort of just dream up these stories and write them all, because they're all just
and the weird little like character traits, and they would like kind of weave this thread like through episode. Like one of my favorite moments, I think, in the show is in the episode. It's in season 5. It's where Frank gets an intervention.
Yeah.
And they go to meet with the counselor for the first time, and they tell her that she needs to be armed because there will be Frank will bring a gun. And then she's like, no, we don't need guns. You don't bring guns to interventions. And then she shows up and she asks like, oh, like how are you getting Frank here? And she said, we told him that there's a fire, that there's a big grease fire to lure him down. And she's like, that's not a good idea. And then Frank comes in and he's cocking a gun and he says, where's the goddamn fire? But I just always love, like, it's just so absurd that he's just always like got like just like the weird little things that the characters would develop, like having a gun. Like Frank has just always got a pistol on him, and then I don't know. There's just like such little funny things that they just kept going like throughout the show.
I think if I had to pick a favorite episode, it's probably in season 4. Sweet D has a heart attack.
Oh my God, that's so good.
I think one of my favorite episodes because that's like one of the most famous ones because of Pepe Sylvia and Charlie like putting everything together on the map at his job. But
did you ever see the YouTube video of the drummer drumming Pepe Sylvia?
I don't think so.
I'll send it to you. It's the whole scene. There's a drummer who drums to the beat of Charlie rambling, and he's just like and makes like a song out of it. It's so good. I'll send it to you. But anyway, keep going. What were we saying?
No, I was just gonna say because they were after she has a heart attack, they all get worried about not having health insurance. Yeah. So that's why they were trying to find that job, Charlie and Mac. And I feel like the episodes where Charlie and Mac are doing something are usually the best ones. Like they just go on adventures. Like those are like hilarious. But there's a part where I can't remember how they got to it, but they were both standing in a hallway and they were talking about something. And like I think Charlie was talking a little bit about his theory about all this mail that isn't going to where it needs to be, and it's Pepe Sylvia, and something's there's money getting laundered or something's happening. And Mac says something like, oh, that 80s song, Day Bow Bow.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? And he's like, Day Bow Bow. And they just start singing it, and they just like break out into song. I mean, there's so many little moments in episodes that are just like laugh out loud funny. You have to rewind, but I feel
go ahead.
I think that's definitely if I had to pick one of them, it would be that episode or the one about like Dennis going to court about the cereal defense when he's eating cereal in the car and he gets in a car accident.
Yeah, that was in the later. That's a season 7, I think, right, or season 6.
I think it's a little bit later.
I was gonna say too, just your point. I love like the Mac and Charlie relationship is also one of my favorites. I just think they just make the perfect duo of like they're just like the perfect combination of idiots. Where like Charlie's like kind of dumpster idiot and just like really got that low life thing going on, and Mac is like this kind of just thinks he's bigger than life idiot. But like I love when I think it's also season 5, but when they're gonna take a road trip to the Grand Canyon, but they stop. They've got the trailer and they stop at the farmer's market and they get Charlie a peach, and Mac turns around or Charlie takes a bite of the peach and he goes, tastes like sand. And he says like, gypsy son of a bitch burned you. And he turns around to the guy and he turns back and Charlie ate the whole peach, like the core, stem, and he's like, I eat stickers all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, they're just like perfect idiots.
Yeah. That's a good one. I think that was season 5. I think that was early on. I remember that one. And I think there was a part where they were in the trailer and like they were trying to cook hot dogs or something, and it like rolls out the front of the thing because they didn't close it properly.
Yeah, they taped it open because the smoke would go out, I think, right?
Yeah, it's just such like just definitely like cringe comedy, but there's so many like iconic.
They don't even make it out of Philly. Like they go on the road trip and the whole episode is them road tripping around in the trailer, but they never even make it out of Philly.
So funny. Yeah, and another show that I watched recently with Mac, Rob McElhenney, I think.
Yeah.
He's in a show called Mythic Quest on Apple TV, and it's so good.
Oh, really?
It's basically he runs this like gaming company where they make like role-playing video games, like super cool, sort of like a World of Warcraft or
Mm.
um
Oh, I remember
like
seeing the trailer for that actually.
yeah, video games like that.
Yeah.
And it's so good because it's not just funny, but there's also like emotion in it. And so I think there were a couple episodes where I probably teared up a little bit because there was one where they filmed completely remote during the pandemic, and everybody was on their phones or screens and trying to do like a meeting, but through Zoom. And you see them do like technical difficulties, and you see all this sort of stuff happen. And the one of the main characters, she is like, she hasn't left her house. She's like hasn't really taken a shower. She's just like in shock because of everything that's been going on. And so Mac's character, I'm blanking on the names because I haven't seen it in quite some time, um figures out where she is and like goes to her house and gives her a hug, even though there's that risk that you could catch COVID or get sick.
Yeah.
um he wanted to make sure that she was comforted. And I just remember crying because I was like, oh my God. Because it was like, I think it was early on in season 2 or at the end of season 2. And so you really get invested with the characters. And
Yeah.
then by then, I had binged it. So I had watched it in just a couple days. And so I just was taking everything in and watching it and then seeing them hug. I was like, oh my God. So there's definitely like, it's more of a feel good show than like, probably It's Always Sunny. It's definitely a little more emotion. It's kind of like Ted Lasso in a way. And that's
Oh,
also
cool.
Apple TV.
Yeah.
So it's definitely got that sort of friendship, like work vibe, but you also see them go through challenges at the office, hiring people. There's like little relationships that develop, and it's a really good show. I wouldn't necessarily say it's a sitcom. It's more of like comedy drama. It's
Yeah.
got a lot of parts to it, but it's definitely worth a shout out because Mac from It's Always Sunny's in it, and I know season 3 is coming back soon.
Yep. I just saw it.
So I'm
I also
looking
just saw
forward
it.
to.
It's actually created by Charlie Day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they
that's
all.
crazy.
I think it has to do with the production company that the three of them run: Mac, Dennis, and Charlie.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. I'll definitely have to check that one out.
Yeah, it's really good. It's a fun one too, because especially for me, I'm not super into video games, but I'm pretty good in that world. So it was fun to see how, like, sort of behind the scenes, because I know it was probably inspired by the way actual video game companies run. So it was fun to see that, because I watched It's Always Sunny as a kid, but didn't really understand the jokes. Like, it was just on, and I just watch it as I got older. And then it was a couple years ago I really started to watch it, and I was like, oh, I get it. Like, that's funny. That's funny. And I've just seen that meme everywhere
Pepe Sylvia.
of yeah,
Yeah,
that his.
it was only, you know what's crazy too? I watched that in college, watched that episode, and even at that time in college, as a student studying smart people things, I didn't realize that Pepe Silvio was Pennsylvania, and that's what he was seeing. I was like, what is this even mean? I just like never even connected them.
Yeah, it was funny because I was showing my mom that episode, because she's never really been into the show, but like she just watched it from time to time, and I was like, "Oh, you got to watch this episode. I think you'll find this funny." Cuz that's another show where you can sort of you don't really have to start from the beginning.
Yeah.
If you know like the characters' names, and like, if you just maybe Google like one thing about it and just figure out who's who, you can just pick it up from
Yep.
wherever it's on.
Definitely.
And so I was watching the one where Dee has a heart attack, and um I was showing her the Pepe Sylvia part, and she was like, "Oh my God, no wonder why you laugh. That's hilarious. Like, no wonder why you like that show so much." And I said, "But Charlie is dyslexic, so do you get how he's reading it?" And she's like, "No." And I said, "He thinks that says Pennsylvania." And she's like, "Oh my God." Like, I feel like not a whole lot of people know that, but
Yeah.
it's also something that is shown in the show a little bit, is like his, he might have like a little bit of dyslexia, or he might spell things the wrong way or something, or he doesn't know the meaning of a word and he'll use it, or
Yep.
he'll get two words mixed up or something. And I know there's a compilation on YouTube of like all the parts where he's like pronounced a word wrong, or he said something and they're all like, what are you talking about? And there's also a mobile game. I can't remember the name of it, but if you just go to the App Store, and it's like, Always Sunny mobile game, where you like you take turns like running the bar, or you do these like little quests and stuff, and it's all inspired by episodes. I played it for a while, but it's definitely something you got to keep up with. It's not just
Yeah.
like a Candy Crush or something. You can just go to it when you're bored. You definitely have to go on it every day and keep up with it, but it is a lot of fun.
I was actually gonna use what you just said to segue into another thing. How you said you watched it as a kid but didn't think it was funny because you didn't understand it, and that's pretty much how I felt with How I Met Your Mother. Because I would like watch it on TV like all the time as a kid. I'm like, this makes no sense. It's called How I Met Your Mother, but yet it's just a bunch of people hanging out at the bar. This is dumb. And then I actually started it from the beginning. I was like, oh wait, this is a really good show concept. I really like this. How he takes like a 2-minute story and stretches it over 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
But it was. Have you seen the full series of How I Met Your Mother?
I have, yes. That was another one I grew up watching. Definitely.
Well, I guess you can start with the finale. How did you feel about the finale of it? I know that's like controversial.
Yeah, and they did also just they just brought it back not brought it back, but they did a spin-off on Hulu, right? It's How I Met Your Father.
Yep.
I've never seen How I Met Your Mother, not one single episode, by the way.
Oh.
I honestly, I always thought that it was going to be revealed that it was one of the characters that we've already met. Like when it came to, I honestly, for a while, I thought it was Robin. I don't know why. I just always had this feeling that I felt like it was just somebody we already knew. And I just thought it was going to be this big surprise at the end. Yeah.
They
But
didn't even
I
make
know
the actual reveal as like thrilling as it was supposed to be. Like because she kind of showed the real mother actually showed up like towards the end of the show, but then she was just kind of around, and then they killed her off, and then they just I just feel like it was so poorly written because there's this whole 7 or 9 season show about a guy, meeting the mother of his children, and he's telling them this story, and and then in the end of the show, it turns out that the mother is actually dead, and he's telling the story, and it's basically him asking, like, hey, would it be weird if I, like, date your Aunt Robin, who's not your aunt, but who's really my good friend? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because you built up, like, this anticipation, like, oh, my God, I saw your mother's ankles on this day, but it was, like, 5 years before I ever saw her real face. We see her face.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's just gone immediately after, like a small montage.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of controversy with that ending, and I think
I want to say that they reissued one.
Yeah,
it's not an official ending, but it's like an alternate ending.
Yeah, it's on like a DVD, right? It's on one of the DVDs. Yeah, I think definitely I've heard a lot of things over the years about like the fans' reaction and how, because I watched it like when it was on TV, and then they would do reruns like in between seasons and stuff. So I, would catch up with it, and then I remember when it ended, and then I remember watching some of it to just kind of finish out that story. And I just remember hearing, it sort of reminded me a little bit like at that time when there was a lot of like debate over whether it was a good ending or not, because it ran for so long, and you kind of expect it to have a really good closure after those 9 seasons. It kind of reminded me of all of the outrage after like the Sopranos finale, how everybody really didn't kind of understand what they saw, and then everybody came up with their own version of it, even though this told a story and it had an ending. The Sopranos sort of, you thought like maybe 3 or 4 different things happened, but there was that debate afterwards. And I think with that, I think also a lot of probably like diehard fans might say, because I know a lot of people have said it about The Sopranos too, is like you're still talking about the finale to this day. So maybe it was a good finale because it still kind of left you wanting more, or it left you with a couple questions. So people, I think a lot of writers write shows or movies with that sort of frame in mind. And I think also it did leave it at a way where there could be a spin-off like there was with How I Met Your Father, or maybe even a reunion show like later on where they bring the characters back and see what's happened, because it was, they were being told this story from the future, and then you were watching the episodes. So maybe they could take us even farther into the future of everybody now. Like that's just me talking about maybe how they could bring it back. But yeah, I think definitely controversial, definitely strange, like just a strange ending. I feel I'm with you on that. Um yeah, but I mean, regardless, still a really great show, and there's a lot of
definitely.
good quotes and things. I remember I love Neil Patrick Harris's character, and I used to go around all the time and I'd be like, legendary.
Wait for it, dare.
I thought it was so funny. Like there were so many like laugh out loud good moments, and good cast too, because they were all like, you know, really funny and really familiar faces too. But yeah, that's another really good show though. And I think I can't remember if it's on Netflix or Hulu, but I know it used to
Both,
be
I
on
think.
like they used to do reruns all the time. And
Mm-hmm.
when I was younger, I would have like a schedule of shows that I used to watch, and I think some of them were on our talking points list as well. In like the morning, they used to play like Frasier, Will and Grace, um, and The New Adventures of Old Christine, which was Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Um, it was like one of her first. It was before Veep, so it was on in like the mid 2000s, and it's a hilarious show. It's 5 seasons. I've seen it, uh, you know, all the way through. God, probably 35 times, because it's just I've seen it all the time. And it just recently came to HBO Max. So it is on there for streaming, because it was never on any streaming before. And then when I'd get home from school or on the weekends, um it used to be Friends, King of Queens, and Seinfeld during the evening. So that would be like maybe from 4 to 7. And then I think that was around the time that like 30 Rock was on. So I would watch that on NBC, but like I think it was the Lifetime channel or TBS used to have all those comedies that would play during the day. Um, and so those were really big ones that I'd watch as a kid. A lot of Seinfeld reruns, King of Queens, just a lot of good like 90s television.
Love it.
I don't think I've ever I was gonna say I don't think I've ever asked you, Inay, have you seen Seinfeld? Or just like clips?
Some episodes, not the full series though.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing about How I Met Your Mother is, well, two things. I felt like with the ending, it's really funny because they had that entire thing planned like from the beginning, because they had to film all like those scenes like in the beginning to make sure that they could capture the kids at the same age.
Mm-hmm.
So often, I guess people would try to bribe David Henry to find out the ending of the show, because he knew from like season 1. But actually, with the spinoff on Hulu now, for How I Met Your Father, it's not the first time that they've tried to spin off How I Met Your Mother, because years ago there was a attempted spinoff called How I Met Your Dad that got canceled with the pilot. Mind you, the title was not as fun or ear catching. I don't want to, for like a better word, because I don't know. But yeah, I feel like if you're gonna say father, if you're gonna say mother in the first one, you gotta go with father in the second one, because How I Met Your Dad just doesn't have the same flow, and it sounds like a fan-made project. Sorry, but it does. But yeah, it didn't make it very far.
Yeah, I actually didn't know about that because I feel like with how it is now, I feel like mother, father, they're just synonymous together. So it just sounds a lot better, like you said.
But I've heard good things about the How I Met Your Father spinoff on Hulu right now.
That's
So
good.
maybe that'll be.
Yeah, I'll probably end up checking it out because there's a lot of shows that I'll hear about or I'll have on a list, and I'll sort of wait till there's like a season if I'm not sure that I'll like it or not. And then I'll probably end up binging the first season and I'll be like, oh my God, I hope they bring it back. Um, but that actually reminds me of shows that I watch. Like I sort of watch one season at a time. On Netflix, there's a show called I Think You Should Leave. And Jay and I have talked a lot about this before because every time we talk, like on the phone, we always quote this same clip of it went viral, so even people who aren't familiar with the show have probably seen it before. There's two really good parts that have gone viral. So I Think You Should Leave is like a sketch comedy show with Tim Robinson, and I think it's had 2 seasons so far. I'm not sure about a third, but yeah, there's the one part that Jay and I always recite together, and it's this hilarious sketch where Tim Robinson is in a cafe meeting with like a potential employer, and the meeting went great, and it picks up from like the end of the meeting where they're like, oh, we'll be in touch. And Tim gets up to leave and he pulls on the door, but you're supposed to push. And so the guy that's sitting at the table is like, oh, I think you push. And he's like, no, I was here yesterday. You pull.
It goes both ways.
So he just stands there. It goes both ways.
It goes both ways.
So he's just standing there, and it just zooms in on the eyes, and you see him struggling, and and he pulls the door open after a grueling minute.
Yeah, that sketch is like an excellent exercise in like there's all the different types of comedy, whether it's like physical comedy or slapstick or wit or irony, but that is like a perfect exercise in the role editors play in comedy, because it is like a kind of physical thing. Like it's just a guy trying to open a door that's a push door, and he's just going to pull it until the hinges break off, and there's nothing like funny about that until they edit it, and it's just this like the music that's playing and the like slow zoom in, and then the like zoom on the sweat dripping, and the guy sitting there just looking like calm blank faced, and then the door pops open, and it's just like this weird, I don't know, just build up, and I feel like the whole thing is only made funny by just the editors and the people. Like you got to have that vision of like actual production to make comedy like you made in that thing.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of shows where it should have been funnier if it was edited properly, but they kind of didn't take the right approach, so the joke just wasn't delivered as well.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. And I think the other one that's gone viral a lot, and it's been used for a lot of memes, is where Tim's character is in a hot dog suit in a hot dog car, and he crashes a storefront, and everybody's like in shock, like, oh my God, there's a hot dog car in the front of this store. And he comes in the hot dog suit, and he's like, we're all trying to find the guy who did this, while he's standing there in the suit, and he's like, I'm just here shopping for clothes. I didn't drive the car. And I know that's been used for a lot of memes, and that's a really funny show. That. Yeah. It's been, I've seen it on Twitter like a lot, but that's like a really funny like sketch show. But a more sitcom type show is a show that he and another really funny guy, Sam Richardson, did called Detroiters, and it was on Comedy Central. Pretty sure it lasted 2 seasons. But I've watched the first season like over and over again because it's hilarious. And they play 2 ad executives in Detroit.
I never heard of that.
And it's executive produced by them as well as Jason Sudeikis, and he's in a couple episodes. And it's their type of comedy. It's really funny. There's an episode where they try to actually the pilot episode where we see Jason Sudeikis is he they are trying to come up with an ad, and he like Jason Sudeikis' character is like a bigger ad guy. I guess he's like in town visiting or something. So they like track him down at this restaurant, and they pretend that they were having dinner, but it was just a segue to go over and meet with him and give him their card and say, "Oh, we work at, so and so advertising, and we'd like to." Oh, it's Cramblin. It's his name is Tim Cramblin in the show, uh, Tim Robinson. So it's Cramblin Advertising, and they set up a meeting with him, and so they're really nervous, but they want it to be like sort of their big break because it was Tim's father's company, and now he runs it with Sam. So, because their names in real life are their names, first names in the show. So they go to the meeting, and on the way, they're like in such a good mood. They're so excited, and they hit someone with their car, and it ends up being Jason Sudeikis' character. So they think that he is like dead or like unconscious. So Sam was eating potato chips. So they put the bag of potato chips over his head and like put him in a ditch. And they just pretend like nothing happened. So they go inside the office, asking, "Oh, we're here with a meeting with so and so." He's like, "Oh, the phone went to voicemail. So let me try his other phone." And all of a sudden, the receptionist like points out the window, and it's him with the bag on his head walking like a zombie. And it's just so it's like ironic, like very situational comedy. So it's definitely sitcom. And there's another episode where they are trying to get a famous singer to do a commercial for Devereaux Wigs, which is like a local wig company. And Sam wanted to sing it, but they have like Tim and Sam have like a weekly thing. They do like karaoke or something, but Sam is a really good singer, but Tim is not. So you see them kind of struggle with who's going to sing this. And so they end up trying to get this famous guy to do it. And they drive him home because they meet him at the bar. They talk about his old records from the 50s and 60s. And he ends up agreeing to it, but then in the recording booth, once they've got it, Tim realizes he can't sing. So he tries to sing it, and his voice just keeps cracking, and he's like, Devereaux. And it just sounds awful, but I've seen it on TikTok a lot lately. So I'm glad that the show is sort of getting a second life online, because I didn't hear about it as much when it was on, and then as it was ending after season 2, I started it, and then it got canceled. But it's really
What network
good.
did you say that was on?
It was on Comedy Central.
Okay.
But now I think you can stream it on Paramount Plus.
Cool.
So it's another streaming service, because I used to have it recorded on like our DVR on Comedy Central, but now I can't find it. So I think it just moved over to Paramount. So I'm definitely gonna have to resubscribe so I can watch it again. But Detroiters. It's a really funny show, and Sam Richardson was actually in a few episodes of Ted Lasso in season 2. He played the football coach who wanted to sign Sam Obasanya up for another team. And he came on and he was talking to him about leaving the Richmond team and going to that. And then I didn't even realize it was the same guy when I watched Ted Lasso, and then I rewatched Detroiters, and I was like, oh my God, I had no idea that was him. And like I said, Jason Sudeikis was an executive producer on Detroiters, so it's like all the things are connected. And then I think Tim Robinson and Jason were on SNL together. So at the same time.
Tim Robinson was a writer, right?
He was a writer, and then he was on for a couple seasons as a featured player.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, he's so funny.
Yeah.
I think we should probably leave as one of at least season 1. Season 2 was pretty good, but season 1 had a lot of good sketches.
Yeah. A lot of comedies, I think have trouble replicating like season 1 when like they first come out and they're really popular. And
Yeah.
then as it goes on, I mean they're good, but I feel like a lot of fans always go back to that first season.
Yeah.
I think also with like Curb Your Enthusiasm and Arrested Development, I think the first seasons of those shows are just like iconic seasons. Because like with Arrested Development, if I go back and like rewatch it again, I kind of just get stuck in season 1 and then I kind of drift off to something else. Because I
Yeah.
love like I think it's probably the first or second episode ever where they burn down the Bluth banana stand
Yeah.
and how he's like, there's always money in the
There's money in
banana
the
stand.
Yeah.
I'll find
There's a
myself saying that
me
all
too.
the
My
time.
dad says it all the time too. I loved the first season of Arrested Development. I would actually disagree about Curb though. To me, Curb was every season got better.
Oh, yeah.
I feel
But
like
I think,
Curb, like the earlier seasons are iconic for sure, but to me, like every time they put out a new season, it somehow to me tops the last season. I just think that
well, I know
it's a
what
show
you
that always
mean
gets funnier.
because this last season that came out was, I think, one of the best
Oh
in the
yeah,
history of the show.
yeah,
Um, and I know it's coming back for another one. I know they're going to start filming soon, so I'm very excited about that. But
man.
I
He
think
just
with
doesn't
the
quit.
first season, you're introduced to most of all of the characters, and
Yeah,
then as it goes on, you learn more and more about them, and it just gets crazier and funnier and
yeah. Especially
amazing. So
When Leon gets introduced, and I think that's season 6. I feel like
yeah,
it
and
just adds such an interesting dynamic to. I mean, obviously the relationship is iconic, but then I don't know, you just kind of get this new side of Larry and just like how he, I don't know, just like living with Leon and all the kind of antics that they get up to. It just like kind of exploded his character into this kind of new, just gave him a lot more like to play with and silliness that he could come up with and yeah, I just thought that show was always progressively getting better. And that was something like I've seen interviews with Larry David and he had like talked about that, just saying, he does it almost to continue sharpening his craft because he thinks that he can like keep getting better as a writer and he just wants to keep practicing and keep writing and it's I feel like he does it pretty great.
yeah, and that's also something is Leon to this day is such an integral part of the show. And it's funny to think about that he came on actually later in
Yeah,
it. Like you just think that the way that their bond is and just their relationship, you would think that he was there since day one, like, his manager, Jeff, or even Richard Lewis and their sort of relationship and how that kind of progresses and goes along and through
hmm
all the seasons. But that's definitely that's a show that that's a show that Nanny really got into after years of avoiding watching it
yeah,
because she was never really into comedies. She was always loved drama, action,
yeah.
English shows, all kinds of stuff like that. But the
She
past
watches English
couple
shows
years,
too.
oh yeah,
My mom loves English shows. We
yeah,
must watch them together.
they text a lot about them. Like,
Yeah,
what's the best what's the like she always texts like to tell her the newest ones.
yeah,
So it's good. Um, but yeah, the past couple years we've gotten her into. I started her on SNL, so now we watch it every Saturday, and
nice.
she kinda has a little crush on Colin Jost, the Weekend
Oh, who
Update
does?
anchor. That's her favorite guy,
Yeah,
and she really loves Curb. Like that's one of her favorite shows now. And she also is into like the late night shows. She loves watching Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert and stuff. So I've
I'm
definitely
surprised. I'm going to bring this. I'm going to bring this full circle real quick. Getting back to network television. Why,
yeah.
or maybe I just missed it, but how come none of the streaming services have created their own late night show, or have they?
Actually, that's a
Like on every
good
night, like doing the
thing.
late night, like
Well, on Peacock, the Amber Ruffin show is really funny. She's a writer and she's known for being on Late Night with Seth Meyers. She's a
okay,
really funny comedian. I'm I know that it comes out every night, but it's in like season form. So I think it's more of like they'll do a season and it'll be maybe 40, 50 episodes and I'll take a break. I'm
yeah,
pretty sure. Um and that's really the only one that I know of that I actually watch. But that's really interesting because I know HBO Max doesn't have any. Well, technically they have re, is it real time with
Real
Bill
time with
Maher or
Bill Maher.
real talk? Yeah,
Real,
technically that's HBO's late night and that's on streaming like the
but
next day
that's
or the following day.
is that
Oh,
every night or
and
is that once a week?
could be once or twice a week. And then they also have Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, which is every Sunday.
Right.
So they do have like late night shows, but they're not in the daily format. Sort of like the Daily Show with Trevor Noah. That's still on Comedy Central, and I'm sure it's on it's on Paramount Plus. I was gonna say Peacock, but there's so many streaming services now. It's really hard to keep up.
I know.
But I know the Daily Show is still weeknights, and I know they put it on Paramount. If it's not same day, it's next day. But yeah, that's actually really interesting because Netflix that I know of doesn't have any. Hulu.
Just their own.
Showtime has a few. One of my favorites is Jesus and Mero, which is on. It used to be on twice a week, but now it's only on Thursdays. And that's a hilarious duo. They're really funny. They do like interviews, but they also just talk about news.
Yeah.
And things in pop culture, and they've also like kind of progressed into sketch comedy as well. So like even though it's a half-hour show, it's really different from because they used to be on the Vice Land channel, or they used to be on Vice. And then I think there was some stuff that fell out with them with the network, so they moved over to Showtime. And they do the Bodega Boys podcast, so some people might know them from that too. But they're like one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite late night shows. They're hilarious. But yeah, a lot of streaming. Yeah, a lot of streaming places don't have like late night shows.
Late night shows or sports. I feel like those are the last two. If one of them can figure that out and just get like a solid anchor to host a evening late night show and then figure out how to get NFL or something on their thing, it's over. Death to networks.
You know what? Apple TV has done a partnership with MLB, so they're doing baseball on Apple TV Plus.
Oh, so it's begun.
Yeah, but NFL, that's going to be a big one, I think. Oh, actually, Amazon, because I always forget about Amazon Prime because you just instantly think of the 2-day shipping, but they have the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and Fleabag, a lot of really great shows.
Yeah.
They have a partnership where they carry Thursday night football shows with NFL.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. So, see, I'm a little bit out of the loop, I guess.
Well, I mean, you don't think about it all the time, though. Like how you said, a lot of streaming services don't have late night shows, and there's, the whole sports thing is interesting because I know Disney Plus offers a bundle where you can get Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus for like $12.99 a month.
Yeah.
So there are ways to get like sports, I guess, but it's not you still have to go to like CBS and NBC, Fox for those traditional Sunday shows, and especially the Super Bowl too. I think when streaming gets the Super Bowl, that's going to be big.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's inevitable, but who knows how long it'll take.
Mm-hmm. So another one that I wanted to mention because Inay and I have talked about it is Everybody Hates Chris. Is a show that we both grew up watching.
Yep, I never watched it.
What?
Oh.
I know.
I feel like that's most of this episode. It's just somebody has not seen something.
I know. It's one of us. I think Becca's seen everything maybe, but...
Probably, yeah.
Me and you.
I try.
Yeah.
I try. It's funny because I really was like, I used to be so out of the loop with TV shows, and I guess now I don't want to get back to that. I want to make sure I'm on top of everything. I feel like TV is my favorite, and I really I'm out of the loop with movies. I don't watch enough movies because I like the idea of characters continuing and not just ending after a 2-hour thing.
Yeah, I love that. I do love movies too, though. I'm actually pretty on top of movies. And you know why? Because I love trailers. There's a good trailer, I'll watch it over that movie The Northman just came out, and I think I must have watched the trailer to The Northman 200 times. And I actually still haven't seen the movie yet, but I was hoping to see it maybe today. But yeah, I'm always usually going to the movies on the weekends, at least once.
Nice. Yeah, I haven't been to the theater in like I think 3 years, honestly. Since all the pandemic stuff happened, I really just went into TV mode, sort of, and I haven't gotten out. So I'm stuck in the television. I live there now. But yeah, Inea and I, we've talked about how we kind of grew up watching Everybody Hates Chris. Scrubs is another show that I know is Inea's favorite.
Maybe we'll benefit better from a Scrubs conversation then.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because I feel like that's kind of I feel like in some ways it might be underrated, because I feel like it's not talked about enough.
Yeah. I know, like the other shows that were out around that time, they still have the same buzz going around, but Scrubs just isn't really talked about much, as you just said.
Yeah, I feel like it's also, when did that end? That was an older one, right? When did Scrubs?
2000 something.
2000 something. It was started 2001 and ran 9 seasons. So I guess it's been about
2010.
12 years since it's been on.
Yep, 2010. I was close.
Oh, 2010, yeah. Yep. That was a great show, though. That was like one of the original, I feel like, maybe not the original, but you know how Ted Lasso kind of got, I feel like it's like Emmy charm, and the reason that everybody like loved it so much was because it sort of reintroduced this really feel-good vibe to a sitcom, or to a TV show, and it was like all positivity and showing how to be good in the world. And Scrubs was definitely, I feel like, one of the first, or one of the most notary just kind of shows that was good people like trying to do their best and do good, and there was always like a feel-good moment or a lesson. I know that what was his name, Perry Cox's character, the kind of jerk doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was kind of that little introduction of not as good, but then even he had like awesome redeeming qualities and was cool. That was a great show. What do you guys think?
It's definitely one of my favorite shows. I love the fantasy sequences that they have throughout the show, because honestly, I think that that's pretty much how I think from a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Just experience one thing and I'm just
daydreaming
about some absolute nonsense, and then it's like, hey, you still with us? Sorry, I was just scripting a whole thing from this.
Yeah, I did love that. That was a cool little tool that they used, the daydreaming and flashbacks and cool alternate reality stuff.
Yeah, that was a good show. I feel like we were saying, it's definitely underrated. I feel like it should be talked about more. And I know I can't remember the channel, but it is on like syndication. I just saw it on TV the other day. So at least, I think it's on Hulu maybe as well.
That's where I watch it.
Yeah. And I know Inea showed me these stickers she got on Redbubble. Right? Don't you have a couple? I think you have a couple Scrub stickers. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, do I have any Scrub stickers?
Yeah, I remember one with Zach Braff.
I actually have my water bottle right here. I just got it from my car. Yep,
yeah.
It's the one where it's JD just screams internally. I want to say it's like from the first or second episode.
Yeah, that's another thing, is like Redbubble, I think, has also kind of changed television in a way, because there are so many fans that are so they're so talented, and then the things that they create on there's a world for everything. Like, you go to Redbubble and maybe a show or a celebrity or something that you think might not have, you feel like you might be like the only big fan, but there's tens or hundreds of different designs and things to get. Because I know there's tons of Succession stuff. There's Scrubs. I used to be obsessed with the show Bones. years and years ago.
I remember that.
That's why I'm on Twitter. Like if I never watched Bones, I never would have been on Twitter, and I never would have met Inea. I mean, my life would be so different if I didn't watch Bones. And I remember thinking, oh, there's no way that there's merchandise for Bones, because I'd always look at the network shops, like the Fox store or the NBC store. And sure enough, I found some of the coolest shirts and stickers and tote bags and things. And there was stuff from New Girl and stuff from Community and 24 even, because 24 is another like action show that I grew up watching. And I just figured like, because I watched it when it wasn't really on television. I caught like the last few seasons, and I didn't think that there'd be any merchandise, but there's merchandise everywhere. So I love Redbubble because it gives fans a good outlet for all their fun creative stuff, and we've gotten a bunch of cool things from it. So shout out to Redbubble if anybody on there is listening. Was there any other shows that we didn't chat about that you wanted to talk about? Because I know we've talked about this for a while, which shows we wanted to do.
You guys definitely hit all of mine. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say if we were going to have one departing question that I would always debate people on, The Office or Parks and Rec?
I'm going to have to say Parks and Rec because I've never
Whoa.
seen The Office.
Whoa!
I've seen like a couple episodes, but I'm gonna have to say Parks and Rec.
Give it a go. Well, Parks and Rec is amazing, and I think it's like definitely a close call between. What would you say, Becca?
That's really tough.
Yeah.
Because I was literally just watching The Office this morning. But you know what? I think The Office, like in itself, is iconic, and I feel like since they were both NBC comedies, I feel like it kind of overshadows Parks and Rec in a way. So I'm gonna go with Parks and Rec. I'm gonna go with the majority here because I think it's such a cute show, and it's another like feel good. There's a lot of feel good moments. There's a lot of emotion in it. So
I think I would even agree myself. And The Office is maybe my favorite show of all time. But I would at the same time say that the Parks and Rec is possibly a better show. And the reason I think, so like The Office to me has like some of the funniest moments in television history, right? Like seasons, and again, that's like one that's like, to me, seasons 1 through 5 are perfect television. With a little, maybe not, season 1 has a few hangups, I think, but the show, like when they started planning for the departure of Michael Scott, the show like kind of shifted and needed to become something else that I feel like they didn't have figured out at the beginning, but Parks and Rec did. And I guess what I mean by that is like the show originally started as a show about normal people in an office that really didn't have many crazy things about their characters. They were just kind of, like Phyllis, and like at the beginning of the show, they were all just like normal people reacting to an insane boss. And then there was like a little bit of a, craziness with Dwight, and then that was really it. Like most of it was very dry, like Stanley being like, yeah, and it's just like this supposed to be these like kind of mundane individuals reacting to the insanity that was this boss. And then when Michael Scott had to leave, they had to really like overdevelop the characters and really rapidly to keep an interesting TV show. So, there was like these kind of, like Phyllis sort of became this, I think she had like a bunch of over-sexualized parts about her personality that developed later in the season where she was kind of, a little bit perverted in some ways. And, Kevin got notably dumber. Like if you watch it, like he gets like, he's super dumb. And they just all kind of become this like very extreme versions of themselves. Whereas Parks and Rec, I feel like from the outset was a show with developed characters, and they all had their unique, quirky things. And the show like doesn't really have like a high or low point. I feel like it's just good all the way through because they just kind of realized that, from the outset to like make these characters, who they want them to be right away and plan their futures instead of needing to come up with all those ideas later and come up with these kind of half-baked versions of them. But that'll probably be a controversial opinion because a lot of people I know love the later seasons and think that those are some of the best ones. But personally, I thought the beginning of the show.
how you said like how when they were preparing for Michael to leave, I think the show did shift.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like it was split into two shows almost. It was
Yeah.
like The Office with Michael, The Office without Michael, because he was such a he was like a core character. Like there I feel like in those beginning seasons there was no Office without Michael Scott. He was, world's
Oh,
best boss.
yeah. The whole show
And
was.
the Dundies, the Dundie Awards and everything. I mean, it all kind of all revolved around him. And then you saw the relationship with Jim and Pam, and you saw Dwight just get crazy and have the beats and everything.
Yeah.
And also the thing you were saying about Kevin is just one. I know we can't have a sitcom episode and not just give a shout out to Kevin's chili. I just want to. That's just the most iconic thing ever. I rewatched that episode the other day, and just you can hear the excitement in his voice when he's talking about the recipe, and it's a Malone family tradition, and just that moment when he drops it, it's heartbreaking and hilarious all at the same time. But with Parks and Rec, I mean, they never
that
really.
Moment real quick too. That's another example of perfect editing comedy. Because to play like what makes it funny is playing them at the same time, like him dropping the pot and scooping it all up and like fumbling while over that is his narratives talking about how excited he is to bring the chili into the office. Like it's just brilliant editing.
Yeah.
To do those both at the same time. But anyway, you can keep going.
It is. No, I was just going to say that Parks and Rec, if I'm remembering correctly, never really lost its core characters. There was some switch arounds, and a character would leave for a little while, they'd bring on somebody or they'd hire somebody new, but Leslie Knope was always there. And I feel like she is like the Michael Scott, I think, of Parks and Rec, because there would be no show without her. And I think if she had left like midway through, I don't know if it would have been the same. So I think it's definitely, they're both NBC comedies. They're both that sort of mockumentary style, but I think the characters are different because they all have like their own quirks and interesting things about them. And then you just get so into it. So that's definitely that's a really good question, though, to compare those two.
Yeah. It was also just very interesting that NBC did that sort of like because The Office was also one of the pioneers in that sort of mockumentary, sitcom world. And then to just double down while they're both on at the same time, they're just like, we're just going to make another one. And it'll be an Office at a Parks and Rec. And I think they were in Illinois, right?
Indiana.
Yeah, it was just and it worked out. I remember in the early years of Parks and Rec, I didn't watch it because I was like, what is it? Just an Office knockoff? Like, I've got The Office. What am I going to watch this for? And then it just ended up being another amazing comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really, it's an iconic one.
For sure.
But I think that wraps everything up that we wanted to talk about today, and we're so grateful to have you on. This is your first time on, so
first appearance.
You'll be back because we got Succession to talk about. We've got more comedies. I know there's so many more that we didn't get to today, even though we touched on a lot, which is exciting. I know there's so many more comedies out there, so you're gonna be back a lot. I feel it.
Oh, for sure. I hope to be. And thanks again for considering me and having me on. It's super exciting. And I listen to the show and you guys are killing it. So keep it up.
Thank you. That means a lot.
Yeah, of course.
We have a lot of fun. But so for anyone out there listening who also is into music and pop punk, Jay he's the lead drummer for a really fantastic band out of Connecticut, Chousand. They recently had a new album come out in August called Maybe I'll See You Later, which has some awesome songs. Hydrangea Blues is like my favorite song.
Oh, thanks.
That's like one of my favorite songs like that Chousand's ever done. So that's all available on streaming, and they have a concert coming up in New Haven, Connecticut at the State House May 21st. So we'll be sure to share where to get tickets so you guys can see them live because they're really cool. I was at the virtual concert that you guys did last year.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun. You
Yeah,
guys
that
put
was
on
fun.
a fantastic show.
Thank you very
And
much.
do you have any social medias where the listeners can follow you on?
Yeah, so for the band, I mean, we're at Chousand Band. And again, Chousand, it's a little bit of a confusing name, but it's like thousand with a C. So CHOUSAND. Don't ask what it means because it doesn't mean anything. And then band. But yeah, so Twitter, Instagram. Personally, I have no social media because I'm just one of those hermit conspiracy theorists. No, conspiracy theorists, but just staying off of it. But yeah, definitely check out the band and, you know, appreciate anybody who wants to listen.
I do have one question though.
Oh yeah.
What does the band name mean?
Well, next episode I'll come up with a great answer and I'll make a story for you.
Yes.
It really, I mean, we made it so the whole band is kind of a silly joke that just snowballed into a serious band because I moved in with a couple friends that I knew from growing up, and we were just living in this house in Stamford, Connecticut, and we were just me and my friend Brad played music, and who's our current singer now, or who's always been our singer, and bass player, didn't really play music and wasn't in a band before, but we were just kind of goofing around. We were like, we should just start a band, and I think we were riding our bikes down at this park and it had a bunch of loops and we were like, we should do a couple hundred 2 or 3 Chousand loops and just said we're just like, I don't know, somebody was like doing a silly voice and said the word Chousand, and I think I was like, we should name our band Chousand. They're like, yeah, cool. I think they actually said definitely, and I was like, we should name our first album definitely, and they were like, yeah, all right. And then actually we started a band called Chousand and our first album was called definitely, and that's it, and then it stuck and we all regret it.
It's a good story, though. I think.
It's funny.
Yeah.
I mean, it also it definitely is sort of our brand too. I mean, all of our music is. I mean, not all of it, but we're always just kind of goofing around and taking never taking things super seriously. So it definitely became part of our style was to just be kind of whatever and just goof.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It's really great. I'm not biased here, but I think everybody should check it out because it's such great music. I've been a fan since day one. I'm proud to say it. And, yeah, but this was so much fun. I'm so glad you could, because I know you're so busy. I'm so glad you could hang out with us today and talk about comedies. And everybody out there listening, you're going to be hearing more from Jason. He's going to be on here all the time now.
We'll see you guys soon. Can't wait to be back.
Thanks to everybody tuning in and listening. You can follow us on Twitter at SpoilersOnlyDuh, where you can find our link tree, which has links to stream the show. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. More recently, we are on iHeartRadio and TuneIn, so you can find us on your favorite radio platforms as well. And this will be on YouTube, so you can subscribe to our YouTube. Inea, do you have any final words to close us out?
I think everybody should breach federal security and send this show to every FBI, CIA, NSA agent in existence. Let's really get the word out.
Yeah.
But I'm not responsible for any arrests.
Hashtag spam the NSA.
Let's do it.
Let's do it, guys.
And with that, this has been Spoilers Only.